Um, Thank you all so much for giving us your time to see that really powerful but so deeply disturbing film. Um, I'm so grateful to have some incredible women here today who are going to kind of support us in thinking about the enormity of this issue, how it impacts locally, and what we can do to help. I'm gonna start us off with Dr. Mattie Castiel is the Commissioner of Health and Human Services for the City of Worcester, and is herself an immigrant from Cuba. She really, to me, is one of the perfect examples of all the incredible contributions that immigrants make. In 2015, Worcester commissioned a study about the impact of immigrants on the Worcester population. And I'm going to link that on our website, but you will not be surprised, at least my audience will not be surprised to hear they make incredible contributions. The sort of ideas that this is a population of drug addicts and murderers and people that are here to wreck our lives and take our stuff could not be further from the truth. It's so harmful and it's so painful to just watch that story kind of get spun for political reasons. And as we know, even in our community right now, that narrative is always in the background as we try to do our best to make a great place for people to land when they've been through so much trauma already. They are still up against some pretty horrifying public opinions, some just, wow, that film does really bring home all the barriers. Meg's here and Jillian's here. I know Meg and I watched this back in March. And when we were talking about it on the other side, the same thing that you just said, Mattie, we had Casca from ACE, really, it brought back really triggering memories for him as well of kind of just having to hide in trees and run from dogs. And yeah, I don't even know what to say to bring us to be able to have some sort of a healthy, productive conversation about it. And I'm hoping that you do, Mattie. But boy,
if I can do something without crying. First of all, the fact that all this stuff is kept hidden and we don't know all the stuff behind it, right? It's pretty interesting, the stories that we do tell and the stories that we don't tell. And as I'm looking at my grandsons there, but I think about when we came to this country, that my brother and I came alone and fleeing for the same kinds of things. I think just, my family wanted a better life. And I think about all the things that we went through for my brother and I to get here alone. And I was probably one of the very lucky ones that we were able to stay in foster homes, and we were sponsored here. There was 14,000 kids who left Cuba. It was called Peter Pan Expeditions. But I think when my parents came over, that again, they were able to get jobs. They couldn't have us till they got jobs, but that, and it just brings back the thoughts of, if we wanted to do something, we could. And so we were all immigrants. We were not wealthy people in Cuba. My dad was a salesman, sold from here in the back. When he was here in the United States, he sold from the back of his car. From Cuba, he used to carry all his goods in a horse and would sell it. But we came to this country and we did get assistance. And the thought that some people get assistance and others don't is incredible. And to think that we can't, that immigrants don't have the capabilities. You know, I wish my parents were alive, because so I'm a doctor. My brother's a CPA. My kids, sons of immigrant families, or one's a lawyer, and the other one is a researcher. There's a thing we call the immigrant mentality, that we come here for a better life and we work hard to get where we are. And when somebody says that that's not the case, it is incredibly obviously not true. And Amy, I've seen that report, and it does show. You can walk down the streets and see businesses that are all owned by immigrant communities. And I think the one thing I was told I could never be was president of the United States. I was fine with that. But I think the ability to do what we want to do, we are incredibly hard worker, and we had the ability because we were sponsored, and the government helped, and why we don't do it for everybody else is just insane. Because if my parents took 3 months, my dad was taking paint off of furniture, my mom was folding towels, and within 3 months they didn't need any more assistance. My parents kept working. We went to live back with my parents, and my dad continued to work during the entire time. We always talked about that, you know, here he is, this immigrant to this country, who got off the plane and kissed the ground that he was there, and put 2 kids through college. And, you know, I think that that's what's capable, if we give people the right ability to do the things that they can do. And in 3 months, we were able to. If you assist somebody, they will certainly do that. So it is traumatic. It brings back all this stuff back.
It is, and it's so powerful to think about the contributions you've made and your family's made and your children have made, and to think that there's political gain in keeping that from people, and the amount of resources you needed versus you contributed, not even on the same 3 months of help and life generations of asset to our community. And for why are we like this, Mattie? I know you don't know.
We just have a bad, we're in a state where we feed poor information, and people believe that information with no credibility, in spite of showing data. People just don't have that, they don't believe. And it's why I always will say where I'm from, where I came from, what happened, because it is that we're an immigrant community here. We're all, a good portion of us are all from immigrant communities, and we've all survived, and we've all done well, and we can continue, and that's part of the whole idea of giving back to the community, right? That people helped us to get here, and my goal has been to give back.
It really does remind you of all that we get to take for granted. If you were born here, if you are here legally, if you are right, like I never had that level of struggle and question to my sort of existence that so many immigrants have had. We also have my friend Meg Gallo here, who's from the Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center. She's director there. And the amazing Jillian Phillips, who I had as a student in 2002, believe it or not. And Jillian's also a social worker. she has been doing the hardest work and really helping people that are newly arrived. And that is mostly people from Haiti right now. So between Mattie and Meg and Jillian, if you have thoughts or questions or comments, or even Meg, if you want to just jump in and talk about sort of what's happening in Worcester now, and how people might be able to help, besides from just getting accurate information to be spreading, instead of, as Mattie called out, so much misinformation. This film showed that too. You saw some of these ranchers that had like just the conspiracies of like the stories they spin about what people are really up to, when it's so clear from the two cases they highlighted, people are just looking to live their lives in safety and have access to what they need to live their lives and raise their families.
Right. Amy, thank you so much for helping to make this presentation possible. This is such an important, impactful film, and I really hope it gets to be much more widely viewed across the community, our state, our country. Mattie, your story, it is a truly an American story. It's so important for people to be reminded that the United States is a nation of immigrants, that at our core, we're a nation of immigrants. We're built by immigrants, and we will continue to be sustained by immigrants. And the unfortunate thing is that, people that are lucky to arrive here, maybe, lucky to arrive here first and get established first. And, and then, I think, human, those human feelings of, thinking something is there, mine, not yours, or that you coming is going to threaten or take away. It goes back to the beginning, even when there were very few people here. And then more recently, though, it's really kind of escalated and been compounded. I think for the last at least 20 years, we've had I could say, we've had a lot of politicians who have campaigned on anti-immigrant, policy. And so they're using a lot of fear mongering, and a lot of misinformation gets stirred up because they think it's a strategy to help them get elected and help them win votes. And it's a very easy target population to scapegoat, right? And it goes back even, 1925, we had the Anti-Immigration Act, which specifically barred anybody from Asia, China, and Japan from being allowed to immigrate to the United States. And that was on the heels of all the Chinese immigrants that came here and built the railroads across the country, right? So it's the fear that gets generated from new people, different people, that are different from what the majority is currently. But it's an age-old story that we've seen over and over again. The United States has the largest, broadest immigrant population in the world, and people integrate and assimilate here more easily than anywhere else in the world. So this is really our core of who we are. And so part of it is really important to remind people to think about their own immigration story, because every single one of us, whether it goes back, one generation or 300 years, has an immigration story. And it's important to help people, remember that context. I think that you touched a little bit upon the economic impact that immigrants have, and study after study shows that people come here and they already know what it's like to live in fear, to have their lives threatened, to not have freedom. And people come here and they're incredibly motivated to work hard and contribute and build new lives and get their feet on the ground. And so there's numerous studies that have shown that migrants or refugees, immigrants in general, come here and they fill gaps in the workforce where we don't have enough people to take those factory jobs, and work in different industries. They fill those gaps. They're also 30% more likely than the average American to become an entrepreneur and generate jobs. And they contribute economically to the workforce at a much higher rate than what maybe they take in terms of receiving food stamps or any kind of financial assistance when they first arrive. So that's all important information to understand. And I think, we're so moved by this movie because it is such a sobering and shocking portrayal of the humanitarian impact, the human impact on poor immigration policy. Whether somebody is undocumented is really determined by how we choose to define somebody's access to coming here. And so we used to, we know a lot of folks come here and need to come fill these jobs that we need filled. And instead of, attracting them, so a lot of times there's this catch-22 with a lot of companies as businesses that, people are drawn here and then you turn around and tell them they're illegal. And, and then there's different, sometimes, different laws in place that then, they may be at risk of being, arrested or, held in detention and all these different things, when that's really just, policies of ours that we can choose to change, and give people access to work visas so they can come and go. There was a time when people could come and go across the border more easily. They would come and work, they'd go back home. There was a more natural flow. But again, because of, fear and concerns that one group is going to change us, or, all those kinds of insecurities that human beings sometimes we tend to have, that you get politicians in office that promote that thinking and try to capitalize on it. And so I think one of the powerful things about this film as well is that it gives us an opportunity to, each of us can use our voice to combat that kind of misinformation. And it's really important not to let those voices that promote fear and even capitalizing on the terrorist attacks in the last 10 years or more that we've sustained in this country. And so then, conflating the fear that we have to be, really cautious at the border because, it's making us more vulnerable to terrorist attacks. And I think that history has shown that just hasn't panned out. That hasn't been the case. I think we certainly have a lot of intelligence agencies working on that in this country as well. But there's, the fact that the fear that there could be one or two dangerous people results in thousands of people being harmed is irrational. And another example of that is during World War II. One of the reasons the Refugee Act was established in the United States was because we had a ship of people, of Jewish people fleeing Nazi Germany that arrived during World War II, arrived on the shores of America asking for asylum. And they were turned down, they were declined, because the fear was that there might be some Nazi spies in among them that would get access to coming into the country. And this shipload of Jewish people was returned to Germany, and a fourth of them died in the Holocaust. Or a quarter of them died in the Holocaust. And that was a little bit of a wake-up call for Americans after, that happened, and said, hey, we handled that badly. What can we do to do things better? And so out of that, and also out of the Vietnam War, we actually brought 1.3 million people here into this country from Southeast Asia in the 5 years following the Vietnam War. And so there's a precedent for that type of openness and immigration in response to need. And so 1980, Congress passed the Refugee Act. And you can stop me if I'm going on too long, because I could probably talk for an hour. But I wanted to tell people a little bit about the difference between refugees, migrants, asylum seekers, because I think it's really important for people to understand that process. Just to be really quick and brief, a refugee is technically a legal term. So we use that term very generally and talk about, all kinds of people being refugees, but people coming into the United States with legal refugee status have gone through a really lengthy process, and they've been brought here by our government. So at the Refugee and Immigrant Assistance Center where I work, one of our primary roles is to help resettle people who are being brought here through the United States Refugee Admissions Program, and resettle refugees in our community. And there's 3 resettlement agencies in Worcester that are receiving refugees through the State Department to help with that resettlement process. So to get refugee status, you have to have fled your country, fleeing war or persecution. It's not safe for you to go back, and you can't stay in the country that you arrived in. And so oftentimes people end up in a refugee camp where the UN will review their case. If they see that they qualify for refugee status, they'll be granted refugee status, and then they can apply for resettlement, where they could get resettled to 25 or 30 different countries around the world. And then if they get picked to come to the US, they actually go through a 2 to 7 year waiting period, after maybe being in a refugee camp for 30 years, but they have to go through background checks and cross-examinations and interviews and retinal scans and fingerprints, go through like 300 databases and health screenings. And after they get through that whole process, they get approved to come to the US. They're flown here by the International Office of Migration and then assigned to an agency like ours to start the process of building new life in America. So in Worcester, we've been receiving an average between our agencies 300 to 600 refugees a year in the city of Worcester. And they're coming from countries that the United States has decided we will allow people from those countries. So how we decide, and that number changes all the time, because every year the president, so whoever's in office, whatever administration is in office, gets to decide how many refugees to allow into the country and which countries to accept them from. So we went from 2017 supposed to have 125,000 refugees come into the country nationwide to, by the end of the Trump administration, they only let in 8,000. And then to put that in perspective, we're at a time in the world where there's more displaced people worldwide than any time in history, surpassed the number of displaced people from World War II. And less than 1% of those displaced people ever get accepted and to be resettled around the world. So that just points to the fact that the need is huge and it's ongoing, and it's only going to be increasing in future years, which is all the more reason for us to work on getting our immigration policies in better shape so that we're doing what we can as a country in the most humanitarian way possible. And recognizing the fact that we need immigrants. They're one of the cores of our economy, and they contribute so much to the, we are immigrants. That's what we are. Getting that correct narrative out there.
Thank you so much, Meg, for giving us a little definition and highlighting that this is a policy issue and one of political will. And Jillian, even before we started the film, you were talking about people that are here that are being taken advantage of and victimized. We sort of have this narrative that they're here to take advantage of us and victimize us. And really the truth is the absolute opposite. So just wanted to give you a little time to talk about what you're seeing. And you're at the Friendly House, and your title is New American Coordinator?
Yes, for the City of Worcester.
That is amazing. Thank you.
Sure. So I've been in the City of Worcester for about 2 decades now, initially as an outpatient mental health therapist, and then the last decade as a supervisor at early intervention. And so I've gotten the privilege of seeing a variety of families across a variety of settings. And just like Meg said, there's these misconceptions around why families and individuals are coming here. There's these theories around who is a, worthy immigrant and who's an unworthy immigrant. I mean, even the fact that people use words like that they're illegal, they may be undocumented, but they're not illegal. And, these theories around will just enter the right way and then that's fine. But there's so much bureaucracy around entering, and especially the current migrants, they are entering the right way. They are getting the documentation that is required for them to be in the country. But there's so much miseducation and misinformation that goes around that it's a lot easier to just kind of get on that bandwagon of saying, they're taking jobs and they're taking money. And even now with the government, everybody's at a standstill because they don't want to, put more money into people who aren't American. When, like Meg was saying that, and like Dr. Castiel was saying so many times, they're the ones that are actually contributing to keeping our economy afloat. They were the ones that were on the front lines during COVID, while many of us were behind these Zoom screens doing our jobs. They were the ones cleaning and keeping food moving and keeping everything going. And it's because they're here to work. They're here to have a better life. They're here for safety. So often I would say to the families that I worked with in EI, you struggled enough to get here. You shouldn't struggle while you're here. This is meant to be your refuge. This is meant to be, a positive next step. And definitely we are seeing people be exploited, be taken advantage of. The example I was giving to Amy before is that a family was transported up to their biometrics, like Meg was saying, to get their fingerprints and their scans. And the government paid for the Lyft ride up there. But when the Lyft driver dropped them off at the hotel, he was telling them that they needed to pay him money. So even and luckily we have now said enough times to the families, call someone when that happens, call someone before you do that. And so they were able to call their worker called me, we got it, figured out this person was trying to exploit them, and we were able to stop it. But so many times we haven't known and we haven't been able to stop it. And there has been a lot of that happening. But having been kind of the boots on the ground in the hotels with these families, they want to work. They're desperate for work. They're willing to do anything. They want to be educated. They want to learn English. I have so many that have said, like, talk to me in English when you're here because I want to learn English. So even that, idea that they're ignorant and that they're not interested in learning, try to imagine yourself being dropped off in Japan and how quickly you would be able to learn that language. Especially for these families who are so isolated right now. Many of the hotels that they're staying in are not in places where they can easily access the community. In Worcester, it's a little bit different. They have a little more access to places in the community, and Worcester is an amazing place, which is why I keep coming back here to work. We are well integrated. We are well resourced, and we lean on each other. Like Amy said, I've known her off and on for 20 years because that's just the kind of community Worcester is. And so our families have been able to benefit from that support. And then they come back around and, they're providing the same support. One of Meg's newest, I'm not sure the word, navigators, case managers, is the son of an immigrant who is also doing the same work. And so even generations down, those people are providing the work and helping others. And that's really, what this is about. And so in terms of how can people help now, the biggest part is to advocate, talk to your Congress people. Amy, I don't know if you're on my email list, but I just forwarded an email that they are looking for people to sign some things. So if you can get that forwarded out, it has like a blank letter that you can send to your senators, your Congress people, your federal representation, as well as your state. That's really going to be the best way to help families right now. My boss texted me while we were here and said, the sky is falling. Can you call me? Because with the governor putting the stop to providing, shelter coming up soon, we're going to be in a really tough place, and our families are already in a really tough place. A lot of the meetings that I'm having right now is on basic needs. How do we get these families somewhere they can cook? How do we get them somewhere they can clean their clothes? They've been very, innovative to date to figure out a way, but it hasn't been easy. You know, it's not like they're sitting here living high off the government and just enjoying life. They're struggling. Their mental health is struggling. Their nutrition is struggling. There's a lot of health needs that are going unaddressed. So other things people can do is offer, you know, rides, offer basic hygiene items. The space I'm in right now is at 7 Hills, and we just opened a donation center here with the National Guard. So if, you know, you have extra resources, bring, you know, diapers, wipes. The wipes are a huge need, personal care items, pads, toothbrushes, lotions. These are all things that, you know, yes, they are getting some refugee money, but it, you know, especially when they're Ubering everywhere, they're ordering out food because they can't cook, that money doesn't last long. And so being able to kind of get those basic needs in their hands so they have a little more money to take care of themselves is really important. Offering to help with transportation, we're going to pilot a Haitian-run, Haitian-supported transportation program. And so we're very on board if you have like gas gift cards you want to donate so that we can help put those into the hands of some of these Haitian individuals who are going to be providing rides to other Haitian individuals to get to their medical appointments, to go grocery shopping. We're also trying to, you know, they can't work right now, but how can we kind of support them? And so can they do childcare for each other? Can they, you know, some of them do speak English. Can they help with some English language learning for their peers? And they are doing these things. One of the floors at the hotel I've said is like its own little village. You go up there and they're in the hallways and they're hanging out with each other and the kids are hanging out with each other. And it's, you know, TT and aunties and, you know, it's really amazing to see the community that they've built and that they've welcomed some of us into those communities. I told someone today I've been promoted to Madam Jillian, and you know, they're just so open to whatever help we can give, and they're so thankful to be in a safe place, and they really just want to work and to be part of our society. Dr. Castiel, thank you so much for sharing your story, because I think too often it's so easy to say, you know, those people. And, you know, prior to this, I didn't know your story. And like Meg said, we're all immigrants. You know, my great grandparents all came from other countries. It's not as embedded in my day to day because it was so far removed, but because they were given the chance and the opportunity, I'm privileged enough to not even know what that struggle is like. And the children of the people who are here now are going to have those same experiences. So it's just really important that we keep that in mind, that, you know, we don't need to take care of our own because these are our own. We are taking care of our own. These people belong here. They're welcome here. There's the resources that are here because they are ours. They belong to us too. And if, you know, it's that Maslow's hierarchy, anyone who knows that, if we can just get them the shelter and the safety and the food, all those next pieces can come. And these are the children that are going to thrive, and they're going to be the ones around. You know, probably won't be Zoom calls in 20 years. It'll be holographic. They'll just be in, you know, the world with each other, doing amazing things. Just like, you know, I'm sure Dr. Castiel, when your parents worked to get you here, they couldn't even imagine what your life would look like now. And here you are making them proud. So I know that that's what it's going to look like in 20 years when the children of these immigrants are having those same experiences. So it's really a privilege for us to be here and be witness to this. And thank you so much, Amy, for always having these little corners of the world where, you know, like-minded people can get together, because it can get isolating for us too as providers to forget that there are other people who feel the same way. There are other people who, you know, aren't politicizing, you know, immigration and humanity. So thank you for offering this space.
Brilliant. Thank you for kind of raising up the beauty of our community's welcoming response to people. It can be so hard to just recognize how much trauma is happening in our name. And right, but all three of these women really highlighted that these are policy issues. These are done in the name of our government. And I certainly struggle to feel like I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of additional harm to already harmed people. Eddie Canales, in that, I don't know if he said it in the film or if I saw him say it afterwards, but he said, like, we have to just recognize migration as a fact of human life and stop deciding that, you know, this group is one group and not the other, and privileging. We are just absolutely fortunate that we haven't had to flee our country as Americans. And I don't know that I don't know that in my lifetime I'm going to be able to say that throughout, right? Like, there's so much instability in the world. This could be any of us at any given point feeling like to just keep our family alive, we have to leave our country. And that's what these people were doing. These cases, the young man who got deported for a traffic violation, never even lived in Mexico, just wanted to get back with his family.
Yeah, that's such an important point also in terms of understanding misinformation, is that majority of people, there's this misconception that everybody wants to come to America and we can't just, you know, let the floodgates and the doors be wide open and we'll be overrun. There won't be enough room for everyone. It won't be economically possible. But the reality is that everybody doesn't want to come to America. Honestly, most everybody wants to stay in their home country where they know the language, where their family is, where they can already, their education is, you know, professionals come here and they can't work as engineers and doctors where they could in their country if their country was safe and stable and hadn't just been bombed or something like that, right? So majority of people really would prefer to stay in their own homes and be able to go back home. You know, so that's another role that the United States plays on the global scale, is how we are helping to stabilize different countries around the world and different regions of the world. But it's also, you know, incredibly important to get the message out that there are so many people in our community and in our country that support this work. And I'm just amazed, you know, I go from one sort of meeting to another with another group, and there are dozens and dozens of agencies and organizations across the state of Massachusetts just working to support the Haitian migrants here. And sorry, getting a...
That was my poll. I'm sorry. I know that I didn't mean to interrupt you with my poll. I thought people could do that on the side. But DPH would like us to just collect a little demographic data about who comes. So if people wouldn't mind doing that as we're still talking, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just think it's important that to get the, you know, public perception, you know, to combat the, you know, the wrong information that's out there, and constantly, you know, because, you know, 10 neo-Nazis protesting at the hotel in Marlborough is going to make the news, and gets what's broadcasted everywhere. You know, 150 agencies working across the state to support, you know, migrants coming into the state doesn't make the news. And, you know, 150 agencies and thousands of people. So the reality is that the vast majority of people understand and are supportive of the process of immigrants coming into this country. And it's really a small minority politically and I think in the community that gets, you know, that are promoting these other ideas, and people that get sucked into it. And you know, some of the concerns being raised right now, where the money that it's costing to support and pay hotel bills for migrants in the hotels, you know, why should our tax dollars be spent on that? And you know, so there's some real, you know, sort of topical issues that are going to be debated, and we, you know, it's important that we all, you know, think about that and understand how to discuss those issues and have a response for them. Because I think the sort of what I say, maybe the silent majority, you know, it needs to not be silent. Otherwise, we end up with these horrific situations like we have at the border, where there's just, it's shocking to hear that there's thousands of missing people that are buried in that desert somewhere, and we can't even track who they are or know anything about them. And these are human beings, and it's just, you know, it's shocking to me. I'm like, this is the United States of America. This should not be happening, right? So, but it starts with, you know, helping to control that public narrative and getting the right information out there, and you know, that there's such a groundswell of support versus the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah, Terry, thanks for the note about my poll. It doesn't look like anybody got to even take the poll, so sorry that the poll did not quite. I'll relaunch it and see if it works, but and I also saw, thank you, Deb, for posting in there that we're going to offer the film again live, and Meg and Mattie, and we hope everybody will join us to see it in person and speak in person, because again, so important, such an important topic. We really yeah, it's super important that we all recognize that this is happening to people, that this isn't what we want. We want to be the city that we know we can be, welcoming people, supporting people, and making space for them to live their best lives, just like we've all been given the space. And so I'm sorry to sort of not have a lot more time to talk about this. Such an important issue and so relevant and unfolding as we speak. So thanks so much for those of you that showed up today, that continue to care, that are doing everything you can to support this population. There's definitely good ways to help. The donation center, Meg's agency, Mattie is helping us every day in the city of Worcester.
If anybody wants to do a donation drive with kids in school, or a scout troop or church or anything like that, you know, clothing is great. Also, I always add umbrellas to the list. Do an umbrella drive. Folks always need umbrellas.
Winter are closed too, right? I'm sure.
Yes.
No, I know the school does a lot of coat drives. Many people are coming from warm weather countries, and they are not ready for a New England winter. So if you got anything that you're not using that you can donate, please do. And thank you so much. It's so amazing to know that we have really great people in our community that just continue to care and do everything they can to support people.
Can you say it again, that where can we donate clothes?
I think at 7 Hillstone, does anybody
Yes.
know offhand where the 7 Hills Donation Center is now?
Maybe we can send out in a follow-up email the address.
Okay.
That just got set up.
We'll post it on the Facebook. We'll send it out. And I'm super excited that you want to donate things. So thank you so much. I'm sure we'll find places for you to bring anything you want to donate. Because that's what people are using to just live right now. So it's super important. Thank you so much. All right. Hate to call it a day on such an important issue, but we're past time. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Mattie. Thank you, Leah, Meg, Susan, Deb.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here.